ZJB.
You are connected.
Welcome.
ZJB Radio with the spirit of Montserrat, #1 in entertainment and the most trusted source in news and information.
Good day, all. I am Fiona Alexander Smith. Thank you for tuning in to today's press conference, where the Premier and Minister of Finance, Honourable Joseph E. Farrell, will announce the package of support which will be provided to cushion the financial impacts as a result of the COVID-19 lockdown this year. After his remarks, members of the press who are online will be able to ask questions pertaining to the areas being covered today. We also have officials from the Ministry of Health and Social Services and the Ministry of Finance online who are available to respond to questions. So without any further delay, good afternoon, Premier, and please, you can proceed with your official announcement at this time.
Good afternoon, Fiona. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very pleased to speak to you on some broad areas which affect Montserrat at this time. Like every other country, we have been impacted by the coronavirus pandemic. Our healthcare system has been severely stretched, and economic activity is grounded to a halt during the early months of 2021. We never really gained traction from 2020, since as international travel and cruise industry came to a halt. As a people, we were fortunate to revel in a COVID-19 free environment for just about 7 months. I wish to thank all of you for your willingness to work with the health team and your government. You adhered to the protocols, and by doing so, you allowed the country to achieve this milestone in the midst of explosions of new cases across the world. Our message has been consistent. Practice proper hygiene, sanitize your hands, wear face masks and covering, practice social distancing. And that if we lay down our guard at any time, one positive case was far too much for this country. We succeeded because of your help. We were aware that at some point in this honeymoon period, we may eventually come to an end with a COVID case. And so it was. When on February 6, 2021, Montserrat reported its first imported case of COVID-19, bringing Montserrat's total number of COVID-19 cases to 14 at that time. We are grateful for the expeditious manner in which the health team took on the challenge to track and trace all persons who may have been exposed. And had they not acted swiftly, I'm afraid that the situation could be far worse. 7 cases in this second wave is far too much. But that's the nature of the beast we call coronavirus. I wish to express my profound thanks to the health team, including the laboratory and other technicians who worked tirelessly for long hours, collecting and testing samples to ensure that results are reported in record time. The cooperation of you, the public, was fantastic, and we also say thanks to you. During that first week of lockdown, I heard the anger in many voices over the most recent spread of the coronavirus. During those early days, there were outbursts, and I understand the anxiety among the population. But while I will never condone the behavior of individuals who opt to defy quarantine rules, I wish to say to all of us that they are our brothers and sisters. The sad part of the story is that In the midst of the many uttering, many before them took their chances and deliberately violated the quarantine rules. But for the grace of God, we are here. I urge you, therefore, to show some compassion towards those individuals, even though you may have been angry. This brings me to the second point, looking to the future with hope. A second lockdown was not something your government looked forward to. Lockdown is bad for the country. It impacts every lives and livelihoods. It damages our economy. And in the final analysis, all of us suffers. In this coronavirus environment, there are choices and decisions to be made. But I can assure you that when it comes to making decisions, and as wide-ranging as those choices are, decisions taken by this administration will always be in your best interests. Your health, your safety will always be our number one priority. 11 months ago, we experienced our first lockdown. The measures taken were hard, but they served us well, and we are thankful. We are now in the third week of this current lockdown, and I feel your pain, the pain of all who need assistance, those of you who are unemployed, our daily paid workers, those who do odd jobs to get by and cannot venture out at this time, parents with their children at home. I understand what you're going through. And I will make this bold statement. This country cannot take on another lockdown. Permit me to quote one of my OECS colleagues when he said, "Lockdown is for the rich." And certainly, Montserrat is not rich. It is expensive, and the lockdown has long-term consequences for all of us. At some point in the not-too-distant future, we must seriously begin to consider fully reopening of the economy to include our borders. Our children must return and stay in school. Tradesmen are longing to return to gainful employment. Employers are looking forward to some stability in the industry. Churches need to open, allowing persons to worship, not as usual, but better than they are in the past few weeks. The United Kingdom government made a promise to the overseas territories to provide vaccines when they become available. And on the 3rd of February 2021, we were graced with 3,000 doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine, which arrived at St. John Osborne Airport. This 3,000 doses will vaccinate 1,500 persons, giving each person 2 doses. My brothers and sisters, this virus is not going away anytime soon. But reopening of our borders and allowing us to return to some semblance of normality is possible. It all depends on us. Getting vaccinated is one way for us to achieve that goal. It is a lifetime and a lifeline, and we must hold on to it. Now is the chance. Now is your chance. Register and get vaccinated now. It brings me to the final point, and exactly what you want to hear. Assistance to the population. Lockdown has consequences, and one such consequence is the socioeconomic element. During the first week of this new phase of lockdown, I advised the Financial Secretary to see how we could identify some funds to assist the population, even at the expense of cutting deeper into the budget of some ministries. He did. And today I am pleased to report that on Thursday, February 18th, Cabinet agreed on a package of assistance which would benefit a cross-section of this population. The package that I'm about to announce consists of 5 elements, or 5 parts, to which I now speak. COVID-19 social benefit support, or, if you wish, unemployment benefit. From the outset, it was clear to my government of the necessity that some form of employment support was needed. To this end, we have agreed that each unemployed person on island will receive $900 each for 1 month. The number of persons who benefited from the package during the first lockdown might increase because this package does not make provision for direct salary support to businesses. The second element or component is additional child benefit. We listened to you during the first lockdown, and we have acted. This time around, all individuals who have children under the age of 18 will receive an additional payment of $150 per child. $150 for each child. We have gone a little further this time, and we have included an element to subsidize your utility bills. Government will pay the fuel surcharge on all domestic electricity bills for 1 month. We will also pay all domestic water consumption for the same month. The next component is direct financial support to the private sector, the small business grants. During the lockdown in 2020, 91 small businesses benefited from this scheme. The grant scheme assisted these businesses who had to submit actual receipts of utility bills, rents, and other eligible expenses, and these were used to calculate the level of assistance you received. Government will make an equivalent payment for 1 month of the calculated payment for each of the still eligible 91 businesses. The assumption is that the general costs for the businesses for electricity, water, rent, etc. have not changed over the last 6 months. Hence, we'll pay 1 month of those bills. We anticipate that there might be just a few small businesses who did not benefit in 2020. As a result, we are asking that you apply. Well, let me go back a little bit. Persons who benefited last year in the first round are not expected to apply this time around because your name and information would have already been in the system. It's only for those persons who never received anything. An application would be provided, and they will apply for assistance. It would appear that not many people will apply under the system because most of you would have received last year. But just in case, residents would recall that the Magazine Memorial Home at the St. John's Hospital compound was retrofitted as a quarantine isolation ward in preparation for any eventuality of large number of COVID cases who may require hospitalization. In the event of such, the residents at that facility will be transferred to the Golden Years home. In that light, there's need for remedial work to the roof at Golden Years home. And the government have provided additional funds in this package to complete the repairs to the roof of the Golden Years home. My brothers and sisters, fingers crossed. It would appear that we are nearing the end of this second wave of COVID-19. To God be the glory. However, COVID-19 is very much present around us. You can just scan through our region and cases are on the rise. We are not immune. Maybe we are lucky in preventing any more cases. We must take all the necessary precautions as outlined in the health protocols. If you are in quarantine or isolation, stay put and do not allow anyone to visit you. With COVID vaccine, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. If we are to reopen our borders fully, if we are serious about our children going back to school, if we are to entertain members of the international community, if life on island is to return to some semblance of normality, we must first protect ourselves. The government will always act to protect the socioeconomic and financial well-being of individuals and businesses in Ireland. These support mechanisms are seen as the most effective way in assisting the most vulnerable in our society, as well as to maintain levels of business activity and employment to keep the private sector viable. May the light of Christ continue to shine on all of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those remarks, Premier. And at this point, we'll now invite the press to ask questions. Just before we do that, though, we also have other officers from the Ministry of Health and Social Services and also the Ministry of Finance online, to include the Director of Social Services, Teresina Fergus, CMO, Dr. Shara Greenaway-Dewberry, and other health officials. We also have Acting Financial Secretary, Mr. Philip Chambers, online as well, and they may also respond to questions as they are asked. Now, to ensure that this question and answer segment is being done in a structured manner, I'd establish some ground rules or procedures for how we'll operate. I will call each media house, and when called, please introduce yourself and proceed with your question. You are allowed 3 questions when called upon. Please also remember to position your cameras properly so we capture the best and most professional shot of you. And when others are speaking, please turn your mics off. With that said, I'll now start with ZGB Radio. Good afternoon.
Thank you very much, Fiona, and we want to thank the Honourable Premier for coming and updating us in terms of support for residents and, of course, the private sector. Now, Mr. Premier, when exactly did you ask your FS to look into putting a package of assistance for struggling residents and businesses on Ireland? You spoke recently of this crisis, in inverted commas. What are you referring to exactly? The recent lockdown or the ongoing pandemic over a year now?
Thank you, James. Good question. The reference is really now. We're talking about current. We're now going to the 3rd week of this lockdown. And lockdown for me is, I'm a bit nervous because it brings with it, as I said, some consequences and requirements which sometimes we're not in a position to meet. But to respond to the first part of your question, what time? The very first week, once we announced lockdown, we recognized, and not knowing exactly how long, that lockdown would last because we had no idea as to the extent of the COVID spread. We had no idea as to whether it would take a week, a month, or what. So the very first week, we start Monday, Tuesday, we start discussing about what if. And the FS would tell you, in no certain terms, I say to him, FS, you have to try and find some funds just in case. And even if, and I just want to repeat myself, even at the expense of cutting the budget of other ministries. So that is really when. 2 weeks gone, and that's the time that we start to talk about the possibility of having to provide some additional financing out of our current budget.
Okay, Mr. Premier, and do you accept that since the lockdown in 2020, businesses and families on Montserrat have been struggling and were in need of help pre-2021? Now you announced that there would be a close of the relief package. We've been hearing all along about a second wave and possibly a third phase. Do you think that the decision that was taken to close off the relief package was premature and ill-advised at the time, as so many other businesses and individuals did not get any assistance?
The decision to close, there was no decision to close. The finances which were allocated to us from the UK came to an end. If they were our own finances and we had those resources, we would have gone on longer. But you know as well as I do that of the 2.5 million pounds which we got early April thereabout, we used it for 3 months allocation to persons. So there's no locking off. There's no ill-advised decision to close off because there was just no more funds to help people. And over the past months or so, we have been trying assiduously and in discussion with the UK government. And so they're also asking and waiting on this bit of information, which I believe is going to be available in May. Because the statistical department is working on it. So by May, I'm told that by May, we will have this information and then we can move forward. So yes, that work is being done as I speak.
Okay, thank you so much, Premier. Can you or Mr. Premier again, can you or the FS indicate to us where is the funds that was outlined today for the aid package? Where is those funds coming from? Because in previous sittings of the Assembly and other public occasions, you have mentioned that the government doesn't have any money. So the question is, where is the money coming from now?
Mr. Chambers, I just want to correct something though. In my public pronouncements, I said that we're operating on a deficit budget. But from time to time, I did say that the budget is performing much better than we expected. I just want to record that. So so that at least it goes in the record that I did say from time to time that that budget is performing much better than we anticipated when we decided we had deficit budget. I'll turn over to Mr. Chambers, FS.
Thank you, Premier. Now, as Premier said, he would have requested that we look across government and see what areas we can cut in order to generate the funds to finance these programs. These programs. Now, there are a number of areas we would have done some cuts on. We would have cut for most ministries their supplies vote, and that's across just about all ministries except for health and education. We would have done some cuts to maintenance. We have reduced the SCAF program significantly. That's small capital asset funds, replacement funds program. We would have also reduced the level of expenditure in terms of contributions to regional organizations. So those are some of the main areas we would have done some cuts. And we so far would have realized some savings as it relates to PE.
PE?
The salaries. Personal emolument.
That's personal emolument.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much for that. Final question. Sorry, there was supposed to be a part 2 to the first question. So I'm going to ask a part 2 to the question, and then I'm going to rest. Okay, so Mr. Premier, after you would have received, you said that you were waiting on information from statistics as to the level or the severity of the economic challenges faced by residents. And of course, we know that some will be more drastic than others. My follow-up question is, I know that you announced that the aid package today is only for 1 month, but if the economic severity on the island is worse than we think, will benefits continue beyond this period?
I would love to tell you yes, truly. But I just do not have the resources within the means within our present budget to continue beyond a month. And that is why we are hoping that when the data comes out, and we then reinforce our position with those data, that we might be successful with the UK. I cannot make promises on the UK behalf. We can only present our case as we did time and time again. We can only present the documentation that we have from time again. And having done that, we will hope that we'll be able to sell our position. At least we'll have some additional assistance. But I cannot make a promise that it will go on beyond a month.
Okay. Sorry. Mrs. Smith, will we have a second round of questions, or should I rest for now?
Yes, please rest. We'll determine that given the time that we have. We'll see if we can accommodate additional questions. All right, so thank you very much, DS
Okay,
Media.
I only asked 2.
Well, if you'd like to proceed with your third question, you can do so now.
No, I'll rest.
You'll rest, so you'll come back with the final question after the final media host. That's what you're confirming, yes?
Yes.
All right. So the Montserrat reporter should be online as well. Good afternoon, Mr. Roach.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Fiona.
Good afternoon.
Why is this conference? Are you hearing me?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Is this being Zoom streamed or whatever it is?
Yes, it is. Yes, it has been streamed, as would have been indicated in the emails that were sent. Yes, it's been streamed, video streamed as well.
So why am I not seeing the faces of anybody else? Why am I not seeing the Premier? I did ask that question in the chat.
Well, you would not see you wouldn't see it on your Zoom connection. You would have to look at it on your phone on the YouTube link or Facebook, or if you're at home and you want to put on channel 96 on Digicel, you can do that and you can see them. But because you're interfacing via Zoom, the stream is not being done through Zoom, so you're not going to see the live feed on Zoom itself.
Okay, so
but I am seeing you.
Just facilitating the reporters.
Precisely. It is to facilitate the reporters having access and being able to interact and ask questions. We are, in fact, seeing you, and persons who are watching will see you online as well. All right? So you can proceed with your questions.
Thank you. Yeah. Premier, the whole money issue, is it correct to say that most of the other territories would have received more than one tranche of funds from the UK?
Good afternoon, Mr. Wood. Thank you very much. I cannot speak for other territories. I can only speak to Montserrat. And that, I mean, we have made our case, but I can't speak for the territories.
You see, if we go way back, when Montserrat was receiving its first tranche, other territories, some of the territories were already receiving the second tranche. And as you said earlier, the UK had promised, and they did, since early March, that they would have been supporting the thing. So I don't understand why we are having the difficulty of not accessing funds from them. And I know this is coming following your budget talks. So what explanation did they give us?
Thanks again. We could speak about who get and who didn't get what and what, but that's not the point at hand. Let me just clarify something, because all of us have this notion that budget talk is to talk about money. And let me correct it. There was a time when I was in government when we used to have budget talk. So at the end of this discussion, we knew exactly what we were going to get. This FAM, Financial Admission, is basically about reporting, about whether you have delivered on your KPIs and other things. Yes, really, and look at your budget, of course, how you spend it. And of course, we talk about what we provided our new spent requests. But up until this point in time, neither the FS nor Cabinet know exactly what we are going to get for the next budget cycle. So FAM is really just a matter of talking about things, programs that you had in place last year. Have you delivered on those programs? Did you meet your criteria? Did you meet your KPIs? Did you fulfill your deliverables? This is basically, so FAM is not really about, and I like the way you put it, budgetary talk. I would love this is budgetary talk, because at least we would be able to say to you, this is how much we're getting. But that's not the case, Mr. Roach.
I'm sorry you went there, because that whole FAM matter is something that I wish we would have a sit down and really talk about it, and the new budget talks and so on. But that's not really where I was going. I wasn't talking about FAM. I wasn't talking about that. I'm talking about our resources and what you have. After you received the first $2.5 million, we had not yet sent in our claim, or what it is that we would hope to receive. What was that claim that you made? What was the claim that you made to the British government? Because clearly they have not responded to that second claim yet.
Which claim you're talking about? Having received the first claim, could you just define it?
Premier, we received the 2.5 million on all the information about it on the 8th of April. You sent out that document, which was delayed for whatever reason, where you were asking and saying to the British government that as of that time, this was the assistance you were seeking. And the British government, in its communication with you, said that they would look at your claim and they would be topping up that first 2.5 million pounds.
That's not information that I have.
I've been trying to get that information.
That's not information that I have, unless you have information that I'm not familiar with. I know that we actually spoke to the UK about additional finances, and the budget was really in a jam at that time. Until second quarter, I think, we started to show some improvement. So I'm not sure where this discussion about the UK promise to tap up something else. I'm not familiar with that kind of discussion.
Premier, I'm sorry, this may be taking its toll, but that is information you provided. Maybe not you personally, but it came from you. I have documentation that you provided saying what I just said.
Okay, Mr. Roach, that question was asked and answered by the Premier. The Premier answered the question, so I'm encouraging you to proceed with your next question pertaining to what was outlined, re the financial package that will be offered and any other COVID-related question. Premier has answered that one, if you may.
Okay. And so you're saying that James asked a question about the multi-sectoral information or advice or doing that. Premier, on September 26th, I think it was, we had a press conference. That recommendation was put forward. So it wasn't done in the way of multi-sectoral and stuff like that, but it was pretty much the same thing. I am told that that was put on board. You are now saying that you are now going to take it on board. Am I correct with what I just said this time?
I am saying that I have no objection to look at any suggestion that come our way. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Roach, for your questions. We'll now move on to Aliogana Express newspaper. Good afternoon to you. Malika McKenzie, are you online still?
I don't know.
Please, just to remind the media houses, when you're not speaking or if someone else is speaking, please turn your mic off. Sorry, and I did hear that, Mr. Roach. Please turn your mic off.
I'm Malika McKenzie from Aliogana Express. Premier, my first question to you would be, would you be using the same process to provide the $900, meaning would persons have to provide their social security payment information? And a follow-up would be, was a means test done to come up with the $150?
I will direct this question to the Director of Social Services, if you don't mind.
I'm hearing them.
Malika, are you able to hear us?
Hello?
We're hearing you, so I don't understand why.
Okay, so the Director of Social Services.
I'm not hearing the Premier.
No, I'm saying that I wish to direct this question to the Director of Social Services, who's online, I believe, with us.
Seems as if there's an internet.
I am not hearing you guys. I hear it from the radio, but I'm not hearing you guys.
Okay, thank you, Malika. We are hearing you, and we have the technicians. We have the technicians that are looking into that right now as I speak. So I'm just waiting for the cue from them that the Director of Social Services can respond to that question. Malika, you may have to repeat that question when the issue here is resolved. So just please stand by for that. Just a reminder to the media houses, please turn your mic off because I'm still hearing some comments coming through.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, in case you're just joining us, we are live in the middle of a press conference where Premier and Minister of Finance, Honourable Joseph Farrell, has announced the package of assistance that will be offered here on Montserrat to cushion the economic impact as a result of the COVID-19 lockdown. We were just hearing from Malika McKenzie, one of the reporters online, and we are currently experiencing a slight technical challenge which is affecting the ability of the reporters and those on the Zoom connection being able to hear us. So we're currently navigating that, and we should have that resolved within a minute or two. I'm getting an indication from the technicians that we are, in fact, back on, and the issue has been resolved. So, Malaika, I just want you to confirm that you are now able to hear us.
Yes, Fiona, I'm hearing you.
Okay, excellent. Please ask your question again, because we may not have heard that. And if you have your camera on, please position it appropriately. Or if you have a photo, please use that.
I'm not using my camera.
Okay, so the technicians were just cueing me on
So
that.
you should be seeing my photo.
Okay, all right. In the meantime, please proceed with your question.
Okay, so my first question, as I would repeat it, would you be using the same process, Premier, to provide the $900, meaning would persons have to provide Social Security payment information? And was there a means test done or performed for the $150 for the children?
Right. And that question, when asked, was deferred to the Director of Social Services, Mrs. Teresina Fergus, who is also connected via Zoom. Mrs. Fergus?
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
The first part of the question, no, to apply for the unemployment benefit of $900, you don't need to have your Social Security information. The second question, if a means test was done for the benefit for the children, the answer to that is no.
May I just expand a little bit on that one, if Terry don't mind? Malaika?
Thank you, Premier.
If you don't mind.
Yes, Premier.
Because we want to get this thing out as quickly as possible. You could understand, you could appreciate the time that you will have to spend to go to each household and each person to do a means testing. So there is no means testing for that one, that particular time, as Mrs. Fergus said.
Okay, so just a matter of not. Thank you, Premier.
Okay, Malaika, you could proceed with your other questions.
My next question is, how will this impact the budget? Or should I say, where would the cuts come from for our budget?
Thank you very much. The FS did, in fact, responded to a similar question, but just for clarity and information, I would ask him to just go over them again for you, please.
Right. Thanks, Premier. As previously stated, there are a number of areas where we would have implemented some cuts, and those areas are supplies across all ministries, with the exception of health and education, maintenance budget for some ministries, the small capital asset replacement fund, SCAF, which falls under the Ministry of Finance, and contributions to regional organizations. I also said that we would have realized some savings as it relates to personal emoluments, so that would have present some level of funding for the program.
Okay, so if I can follow up, do we expect monies from the UK to offset the cuts? And where do we stand with the budget deficit after we would have pulled this $2.1 million?
Mr. Chambers?
Sure, I'm happy to respond. We are not expecting any further funding from the UK government. The UK government would have provided, in terms of COVID relief, just about $13 million EC dollars, and this is in addition to just about 81.6 million in terms of financial aid. So overall, they would have provided in excess of $93 million. As it relates to the budget deficit, we would have taken measures throughout the year to ensure that we, at the end of the financial year, we would be maintaining a balanced budget. So we're expecting that at the end of March, which is the end of the financial year, the budget would be balanced.
Thank you very much. And for my final question, Premier, are you considering to make COVID-19 vaccination mandatory, a mandatory requirement, for visitors coming to Montserrat? And what new measures are you considering to secure our borders against COVID as you speak about opening up our borders in the not so distant future?
I will direct the question to the Ministry of Health team.
Thank you.
Ministry of Health.
Ministry of Health team, that question should be responded by one of your officials.
Good afternoon. This is CMO. We haven't advanced those discussions as yet. And so if a decision is made in that regard, that will be communicated to the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Fiona.
Thank you very much. Okay, and given that we have gone through the media houses present here today, if anyone has a burning question that has not been asked, you can proceed. James, I'm seeing that you want to have a follow-up. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Fiona. Just a question of the Honourable Premier. In terms of change you think are necessary to be made to sort of tighten up on the quarantine. We did not get your take on that, so we're asking that question now.
It's very interesting that you asked that question, Mr. White, James, because, and that is why making a decision is so hard for government. And sometimes those decisions have to be made irrespective to the, what is happening around you. I remember sometime last year, and as a matter of fact, all of the new SRNOs, the COVID SRNOs, have in provision for government quarantine facilities. And you will recall that we actually said to persons who wanted an early release then that we have identified at least 5 facilities, small as they may be, so that persons could have come in, pay for their stay, and have and get an early release. I think about 5 days after with a test, and that is still, with the exception of the early release, those facilities are still available. Just a few weeks ago, there was a talk about us doing that, but there's no need to invent the wheel. They're already there. What we are doing and what the health team is looking at, and as Dr. Greenway just said, CMO, they are looking at other measures. And Cabinet is guided by the Ministry of Health. We ask them, they're the experts. We ask them questions, they make suggestions, and Cabinet will decide, make a decision on those decisions. So really, it's an evolving situation. COVID is fluid, very fluid. And the last thing I want is a lockdown, another lockdown. And God forbid that we have that. We don't need that. But all the other things are very fluid. And if we together strive to ensure that we keep COVID at bay, then things will be all right. There'll be no need for government quarantine facilities. There'll be no need for other things, providing we take our vaccines. And yes, we will become infected, but the science is telling us that even if you become infected with the virus, the risk of hospitalization and death is very, very, very slim. So we have to help ourselves. And the the government quarantine facility is in the discussion. Let me put it that way. And a decision will be made later, because realize that we have to tighten up. At somehow we have to tighten up. If we're going to loosen up, we have to tighten up first and then loosen up afterwards.
Okay, thank you. James, that's it for you at this point. I'll go on to Discover Montserrat and see if she has a burning question that she needs to follow up on before we close off.
Okay, thank you. I really could use some clarity on the process that people need to go through to be able to apply for the funding, the $950. Do they already have to be in the social security system, the social services system? And also, if there are new people who want to be able to get funding, the $150 for their children, what do they need to do if they are not already in the current system?
I don't want to cut through the Ministry of the Social Service Department. I think I would give some clarity on that one just to make it easier. Children are all either in school or they are clinics. Either you're going to school because the age is under 18. Children under 18. 18 and under. 18 and under. So it's either that you're going to school, either preschool or primary school or secondary school or college, or babies are in the clinics. So those records are available. And I think the Ministry of Social Services is working closely with the Ministry of Health. Ministry of Social, Department of Social Services is working closely with the Ministry of Education to get that data. So there's no means testing for that part of it, the child thing. Once they establish the number of children, the parents, and the homes in which they live in, that is clear. For the $900, once you received that money last year, as I said that earlier on, there'll be no need for you to reapply. What will happen is that the Ministry or Ministry of Finance or Ministry of Health would call individuals to make sure that you're still around and give you some guidance, but you don't have to apply again. If there are someone who've never received any assistance the last time around, it means that their information is not in the system. So they must now provide that information. And that's the only group who will be asked to apply through whatever means the Department of Social Services choose to use, whether calling, whatever it is, they can call the numbers and get that. But that's the only group that will have to call in and give the information. In addition, I said, and let me just extend the question a bit, the people in the private sector, once you're in the system, once you received your bill payments last year, water and light and water last time around, there's no need for you to reapply, because all your information in terms of the amount, your average value of your light bill, water bill, rent will already be in the system. So Ministry of Finance will then take that information and aggregate and give you the aggregate of one month's pay. So there's no need for you to do that. If there are small businesses, registered small businesses, who did not receive any assistance for whatever reason last time, then an application form is available for them to apply because there's no information on them. So I hope I clarify it, and I hope I clarify it, and I would do anything to clarify it further if you so desire.
Okay, thank you. It would just be helpful if we could have the details of where people can find the forms to apply or the number to call. So if someone can give us that, then we could move forward. But thank you very much for clarifying that.
This will split into two parts. First of all, I'll ask the FS to give you the information on the application forms, and Social Services to give information in terms of the phone numbers.
Right. So the Ministry of Finance will be putting out an announcement in terms of the process for application for business support, and the forms will be placed online. The forms will be similar to the forms used in the first phase of the program. These will be online. In terms of most of the persons who would have received assistance, all of the persons who would have received assistance in the first instance would receive assistance in this case. We anticipate there are going to be a few persons who qualified for assistance and who did not receive, and those are the persons we expect would apply to the Ministry of Finance for this business assistance, business support assistance.
Mrs. Fergus, you should be responding to the second part of the question.
Thank you. Just to add to what Premier said, we have information from the previous stimulus program. So at the moment, we are using that information, calling persons if their circumstances have changed. So in the first phase, we will deal with the unemployed persons first by calling those on the spreadsheet to ensure that the information remain the same. Also in the household, you will have children. So we'll capture the information for the children, and therefore persons unemployed with children will receive the help in the first instance. The second phase are those persons who have not applied to social services. What we will do is send get a message to ZJB for those persons to call in. The other stage that we are considering is to ensure that all children on Montserrat receive the 150 that Premier has mentioned. And so we are working with education to supply us a list of names, contact details for the parents of children. And so we are doing things in different stages. So the first persons we are trying to assist at the moment are those persons who are unemployed and received the help previously. So information will be given later in terms of the contact number.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Nerissa. We'll move on to DS Media. In fact, I was supposed to come back to you for one question that you left back during the first round. So you can ask 2 questions now if you so desire.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Smith. Premier, question to you. We are now coming to the end of the second lockdown/curfew in under a year. Premier, when will we see some sort of package or benefit for frontline workers who have put their own life at risk to protect ours? That's one. And I just want to go on and add the second question to Mrs. Fergus. When will the aid package begin, or when will people start to receive those benefits? That's it from me. Thank you.
I would love to tell you I can give frontline workers something. I certainly appreciate the contribution that frontline workers have made whenever we lock down, either be it the health service, utility services, you name it, the defense force, those ones who help us. They are the people who actually went out and faced the public. And keep us going when others of us, when others are at home enjoying the comfort of their homes. I will have to discuss this with my finance team to see if there's any way we can do something. I cannot make a promise, but I will work assiduously to see if we can find something to offset, to compensate them, because they have gone beyond the call of duty. And let me just say thank you very much, and I mean it from the depth of my heart, bottom of my heart. Thank you very much for the contribution. I know some people say, well, thank you without money is nothing, but we certainly appreciate it. On behalf of all of us in this country, we have benefited from your service. And we certainly just want to say thank you again, and we will see what we can do. It may not be the maximum amount of what you expect, but we'll see if we could do anything. I can't make promises because FS might ask me, well, we haven't going to get money from, but we'll talk to you.
Okay, and the second part of the question, Dwight, you addressed that to Director of Social Services.
Yes, Mrs. Fergus, and the question is, when will the package, when will persons begin to receive those benefits, or how soon would they be able to receive the benefits?
Dwight, we are aiming for next week for the payment to be made.
So by end of next week?
But yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you, Premier, and thank you, Mrs. Smith.
You're welcome. The Montserrat reporter, if you're still online, you have an opportunity to ask a question, your last question.
Yeah, thank you. I heard a question about qualification for, was that the small businesses? What is this qualification? What's the qualification?
We speak to registered businesses because it's always easier. If you're operating a registered business and you have not, and you have received funds in the first lockdown, then as I said, there is no need for you to apply again, because we believe that the rents that you were paying, the value of your monthly electricity bill and water bill would remain basically the same. There should be much changes within the last 6 months or so. So that information is already in the system. So if you receive the first time, you don't have to apply again. You might receive a call from one of the ministries, maybe finance, to make sure that you're still in business or you're around. Not you, Mr. Roach, necessarily, but people who are still in business. And they will call to verify that information. If you have not received anything, or your new business restarted and registered after July last year, then clearly you're going to, in order for you to receive something, you must apply. And that is what that's the application form that Mr. Honourable FS spoke about a little early on, which will be online. And let me just say this, a form online should not prevent you from applying. Simply ask somebody who have with a computer if they can print off the form for you. Or call the ministry, call my office, call the Ministry of Finance, and we will make hard copies available, maybe in stores or supermarkets. And that might be an option that I would put forward now. So if you don't have a computer to get online, that's fine. Don't worry, because I understand that some people may not have received last time because of that. That should not be a deterrent. If you need assistance, call and ask for assistance. The team is ready to help you.
Yeah, thank you for all the persons concerned.
All right.
A couple questions
Thank you.
regarding the...
Thank you very much, Mr. Roach. That was the last opportunity to ask question for each media house. You would appreciate if I allow you to ask additional questions. I have to extend that to the others. So thank you very much. We'll move on now to Aliagana Express newspaper. Your final question.
Thank you, Fiona. Premier, I think the last number of registered persons for the vaccine is over 700. What happens if all 1,500 doses of the vaccines are not used up by the expiration date? And how would this impact our chances of receiving more doses later on?
Very, very good question, Mackenzie. A question that I will put to the CMO, but let me plug it here. It is in your interest and my interest to encourage Harry, Peter, Paul, and Mary to go and take their vaccine, to make sure that it does not expire on us and that the 1,500 persons get their 2 doses. My second dose is due on the 8th of March, and I'm going for it. So please, CMO.
Dr. Greenaway, Dewberry.
Yeah, can you please ask the question again? I wasn't clear on what was asked.
Okay, I was asking that, I was saying, in fact, before that we have over 700 persons registered for the vaccine, but we know that we're going to 1,500 doses. What happens if all 1,500 doses of the vaccines are not used up by the expiration date? And how would this impact our chances of receiving more vaccine or more doses later
on? We would encourage all persons to try their best to register and get the vaccine. We would do more promotion. As to how that impacts future orders, I'm unable to answer that question at this time.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much to the press. And Premier, just your final remarks before I give an overview and just close off. Final remarks from you, Premier.
Thank you very much, Viola. Thank you, members of the press. It's certainly a pleasure, and I'm always available to answer questions, even not in a formal setting. Please do. If you have an email, drop me an email, drop me a line, and let's talk. I'm your Premier as well, so let's talk. Certainly, we would, as a government, we would love to do more for the people of Montserrat, but given the constraints on which we're operating, this is the best we can do. We are hoping that having received those data later down this year, and we use those data, that we can leverage some additional support. This is not a promise. I'm just saying we can leverage some more support. But I'm happy to answer your questions. I know that people are suffering. We sympathize, we empathize with you, feel the pain. There are certain groups within the community who are desperate, and I would have loved to get this package out a little sooner. Ask the social services rather to see how soon they can get it out, and I'll be working behind them and in front of them to make sure that we get that money out as soon as possible, so that at least assistance reach you where it's needed most. Thank you very much.
All right, on that note, thank you very much, Premier Honourable Joseph E. Farrell. Thank you to the government officials who participated this afternoon in the Ministry of Health and Social Services and the Ministry of Finance. Thank you again to members of the press for participating. And as I end, I think it is fitting for me to just quickly say this: as media professionals, we expect individuals to operate professionally and without me or anyone else reminding individuals of how to act. Now, the procedures that we have in place for the press conference, they are essential to ensure that we have a structure and we are not talking over each other. So if you do not wish to comply with them, you have a choice and you can decide to not attend or participate in a press conference. But if you do choose to participate, you are expected to operate professionally at all times. If not, we may have to decide not to invite you to future press conferences or to politely excuse you. It's really important for me to say this because this is something that has been happening continuously at our press conferences, government press conferences. So with that said, I wish you all a pleasant afternoon.
ZJB. You are connected.
Welcome.
We are ZJB.
Welcome.
You've got taste.
Celebrate Dominican Republic's independence with Grace Kennedy Money Services and Western Union